All right, so let's talk about 4 for a second. 4 is an interesting case. Again, we want to simplify this inside of here before we start doing anything with the squared. So this is 4 root 2 I squared. Now remember, when you see squared, that means you need to write it twice. Okay, so we're going to write this twice, and then we're going to multiply it. Okay, so when we multiply that, 4 times 4 is 16. Square root 2 times square root 2 is 2. And then we have I squared. So this one's very similar to the one we just worked. 16 times 2 is 32. I squared is negative 1. So 16 times 2 times negative 1 is negative 32. Okay, now I hope you remember from Algebra 2 that we cannot leave i's in the denominator. So the only way to get rid of an I in the denominator is to multiply by I on the top and the bottom. And remember, we can do that because I over I is just 1. We're not changing the problem, okay? So negative 8 times I is negative 8I, okay? I on top is okay. Square roots, remember that I represents square root of negative 1, and square roots on top of a fraction are fine. They're not okay in the bottom. So in the bottom, we have 3I squared, okay? And remember, we are always going to sub out that I squared for a negative 1. So we have negative 8I over negative 3, which is just 8 over 3I. Okay, now a couple different ways. Let me extend my screen just a minute. You can write it the way that I just wrote it, or you could write 8I over 3 like that. Either way, those are equivalent. Okay. I hope that also you remember from Algebra 2 that a negative exponent means it belongs in the denominator. So that is just this, 10 over I. So I would like for you to fix it like we did in number 5. I'm going to give you about 30 seconds. Okay, so you should have multiplied by I over I on the top and the bottom. So we get 10I over I squared. Remember, I squared is negative 1. So 10 divided by negative 1 is negative 10I. Okay? All right, let's get a little bit more complicated and see what you remember from Algebra 2. Okay? We are going to add and subtract like terms. Okay, don't look at 8 because I know you're already looking at 8 and freaking out. Don't look at 8. Look at 7 first. We are going to distribute that negative sign to both things. So 2 plus 3I minus 5 plus 4I. Okay, then this one just becomes a combined like terms problem. Like term 2 and negative 5 gives me negative 3. And then my other like terms, 3I plus 4I plus 7I. Okay. All right. Now let's tackle the one that looks extra tricky. Looks extra tricky, but it's not. Don't freak out. Okay. All right. So we're going to do some distributing right here, and all you have to remember is what can be multiplied together. So if I distribute this 2 square root 3I to a 2, the only parts I can multiply are the 2 and the 2. So 4 square root 3I. Okay, and then I'm going to multiply the second ones together. Minus 2 times 3 is 6. Square root 3 times square root 3 is 3. I times I is I squared. Okay, and then I got to do a little distributing on the back end. It's easy distributing. Minus 24 minus 12I. Okay, now I just have to clean it up. There's nothing I can do to fix the 4 root 3I. That one just stays. my I squared here is going to become a negative 1. So what is negative 6 times 3 times negative 1? Is going to be positive 18 minus 24 minus 12i. Okay, I got like terms here, negative 6, and then I have 4 root 3i minus 12i. Nothing I can do there. Okay, so it looks super complicated, really not as complicated. And if you need to hit pause to try to digest through the steps, then please do that. All right, let's talk about multiplying complex numbers. So we're basically just foiling. So this one is like the one that we just did. So I'm going to give you about 30 seconds to foil this one. Okay, I'm going to draw the arrows in, and I want you to see if you can foil it by yourself. I'm going to start writing steps or writing what I got when I foiled. You just keep going. Just don't look at the screen until you're done. Okay. All right, look at the screen. I hope you can see that the only thing that I can do is change this I squared to a negative 1. So what that does is the 40 root 2, nothing to combine together. Minus 48i, nothing I can put with it. Plus 10 root 6i, nothing I can put with it. Then the last term here is going to become plus 12 square root 3. I multiplied the negative 12 times the negative 1. Okay. All right, number 10. I want you to be super careful. This means the squared power means to write it twice. So write it twice. The temptation is to turn the sign in the second one negative. It is not negative. Okay, it is 1 plus 4 root 5i times 1 plus 4 root 5i. Okay, all right, you multiply those and then we'll check here in a minute. Okay, again, I'm going to start writing, so you don't look at the screen until you're done. All right, now we've got to combine some like terms. So our last terms that we multiplied, 4 times 4 is 16, root 5 times root 5 is 5, I times I is I squared. I squared is going to become that negative 1. And now I'm going to put terms together. These two guys go together, so we have 8 root 5i, because we're adding. Okay, my last term, 16 times 5 times negative 1 is negative 80. So I have 1 minus 80, which is negative 79. Okay? All right.